Over the last several months, the investigative committees of the House have been engaged in an impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump's efforts to solicit foreign interference in the 2020 elections, efforts that compromised our national security and threatened the integrity of our elections.
Now, let me tell you, things have really hit a fever pitch on Capitol Hill. It's no exaggeration to say that it's quite the scene. 140 members of Congress have just voted to move forward with articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. That's a significant number and definitely not just a handful of individuals. It represents a large section of the House of Representatives saying it's time for him to go. And the situation gets even more intense when you consider that over 120 House members and at least 7 senators are on record demanding either his immediate resignation or impeachment. The message is clear: resign or get removed.
Breaking news. Federal Judge Tanya Chutkan has taken an unprecedented step tonight involving Donald Trump. Less than 6 hours ago, she issued a formal criminal referral to the House of Representatives, and it marks the first time a sitting federal judge has ever directly triggered impeachment proceedings.
Outside of Congress, major national organizations are rallying support, organizing protests, walkouts, and sightings at congressional offices, all pushing for the same demands to impeach, convict, and remove Trump. It's so much more than idle chatter at this point, too. Formal articles of impeachment have already been filed. They include charges like obstruction of justice, usurping Congress's power, abuse of trade powers, international aggression, violation of First Amendment rights, bribery, corruption, and even tyranny. Yes, you heard it right, tyranny. That's how serious some members of Congress are framing their accusations against the president, with 140 of them voting to advance these articles.
Throughout this inquiry, he has attempted to conceal the evidence from Congress and from the American people. Our president holds the ultimate public trust. When he betrays that trust and puts himself before country, he endangers the Constitution, he endangers our democracy, and he endangers our national security.
And there's an additional set of articles from Representative Al Green that was filed back in December 2025. This set of charges zeroes in on Trump's threats against members of Congress, his intimidation of federal judges, and his illegal military actions. Green's resolution paints Trump as a lawless, tyrannical president, warning that if he remains in office, he could dissolve our republic. Our republic is at stake, and that's not just political talk. It's a member of Congress stating clearly that this president is jeopardizing democracy and action needs to be taken.
Res 939, House Resolution 939. This resolution, House 939, impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors. I rise to thank the 140 persons who supported this resolution.
On December 11th, 2025, the House voted on whether to advance Al Green's impeachment articles, and 140 members voted in favor. Now, this isn't the final vote on impeachment, but it's a significant procedural win indicating solid support for moving forward with impeachment. That number 140 marks a whopping 77% increase from a similar vote back in June. Support for impeachment is definitely on the rise. Analysts are calling this a defining moment because it's not just progressives supporting it, it's moderates and members from swing districts who know their seats are competitive.
Today, in service to our duty to the Constitution and to our country, the House Committee on the Judiciary is introducing 2 articles of impeachment charging the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, with committing high crimes and misdemeanors.
These folks are willing to step out and say, I'm not worried about the political fallout. Trump needs to be removed. And that's a real indication of how much public sentiment has evolved. When swing district members start backing impeachment, you know things are serious. Right now, things in Congress are getting really intense because they know their voters want Trump out. There are specific articles laying out some pretty serious charges against him. For instance, a resolution points to 7 major issues like obstruction of justice and failing to uphold the law.
The first article is for abuse of power. It is an impeachable offense for the president to exercise the powers of his public office to obtain an improper personal benefit while ignoring or injuring the national interest.
That means Trump has used the Justice Department as a tool for his political gains. Then there's the freezing of funds that Congress had already approved, which shows misuse of Congress's authority over appropriations. And let's not forget the claims of abuse of trade powers, international conflicts, and threats to allies. That's a lot for anyone to digest. It gets even heavier when you talk about violations of First Amendment rights and the creation of an illegal office. This refers to Trump's appointment of an assistant attorney general for fraud, which operates directly under him.
Posted a message pressing the Attorney General Pam Bondi to indict several of his political rivals. An administration official confirmed to NBC News that Trump thought he'd sent the message directly to Bondi. He was surprised to learn he had actually posted the message on Truth Social. Since the post was made, 2 of the 3 people mentioned by name in the post have been indicted: former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James.
Bribery, corruption, and tyranny are all mentioned as impeachable offenses, and Congress has the proof to back these claims up. It's important to note that this isn't some political game with accusations thrown around. These articles come with solid evidence, and 140 members have voted to push them forward. On top of that, there's Al Green's take, which is even more straightforward. He points out that Trump has made calls for violence against members of Congress, threatened federal judges, and engaged in unauthorized military actions. Green's resolution boldly states that Trump is lawless and tyrannical, warning that if he isn't removed, he could endanger the whole republic. That member isn't holding back, emphasizing that this situation is a real threat. It's democracy against dictatorship. Outside the halls of Congress, the public pressure is huge. Groups like Free Speech for People, Women's March, and Citizens Impeachment have banded together to push for Trump and his top officials to be impeached, convicted, and removed. They're not just going after Trump. They're targeting everyone involved in the misuse of power. Recently, they held a rally in Washington, D.C. called the Remove the Regime Rally, and they've got plans for a Free America walkout on January 20th, where people will leave their jobs to march to congressional offices demanding impeachment. It's crucial because Congress does listen to the people when they show up en masse. Thousands calling for impeachment, phones ringing, and overflowing inboxes get their attention. That's a key part of how democracy works. Right now, there's some significant momentum building with over 140 members pushing for impeachment and more than 120 others making demands. There's a lot happening right now regarding Trump's potential resignation or impeachment, and it's clear that things are heating up. Formal articles have been filed, and outside groups are rallying together for mass action. Trump is feeling the pressure because he knows what's on the line. He even mentioned to Republicans, if we lose the midterms, I'll be impeached. That fear is real for him, and it's looking more and more inevitable. Today, I want to break down what these articles entail, who's backing them, how the impeachment process works, and why we might actually see a different outcome this time around. Unlike the first 2 impeachments, there's overwhelming evidence now. Public support is on the rise, and even some Republicans are starting to waver. This could really happen. Let's take a close look at the impeachment articles, starting with House Resolution 353, which was introduced on the 28th of April, 2025. This resolution includes 7 articles, each detailing separate charges against Trump. When you put all these charges together, it paints a troubling picture of a president misusing power and undermining democratic institutions. The first article addresses obstruction of justice and a breach of the duty to faithfully execute the laws. Here we see Trump using the Justice Department to target his political foes while protecting his allies. He was known to pressure U.S. attorneys to pursue baseless cases against individuals like Letitia James. Plus, he established an assistant attorney general position that reports directly to him, turning the Justice Department into his own personal legal team. That's a clear violation of his constitutional duty. The president is supposed to uphold the laws, not weaponize them for his own gain. The second article points to Trump's usurpation of Congress's power over appropriations. This addresses Trump's move to freeze funds that Congress had already approved. We're talking about foreign aid, humanitarian assistance, and various programs that Congress voted on. Trump ignored this, freezing the funds without congressional approval or any legal authority simply because he felt like it. That's a clear constitutional no, as the power of the purse belongs to Congress, not the president. He might have been ruled against by judges on this issue, but he continues to act as if he's above the law. Next, we have the third article about his abuse of trade powers and international aggression. This is connected to Trump initiating. I've been thinking about how Trump seems to be really pushing the boundaries when it comes to military action. He's been throwing around ideas like invading Greenland and threatening to use military force against Venezuela. And he's doing all this without even getting authorization from Congress, which is actually the branch of government that the Constitution says has the power to declare war. It's honestly hard to believe he thinks he can just start conflicts on his own. What a blatant abuse of power. Then there's the issue of the First Amendment. It's pretty concerning how Trump seems to be using federal power to go after speech he doesn't like. He's been threatening journalists, pressuring social media companies, and using law enforcement to intimidate anyone who criticizes him. That really goes against everything the First Amendment stands for. The government shouldn't be suppressing speech, and what he's doing feels incredibly tyrannical. It's exactly what the founders were worried about when drafting the Constitution. Next up is the creation of an unlawful office. This specifically refers to the position of Assistant Attorney General for Fraud, which would be run directly out of the White House. That arrangement is a direct violation of the separation of powers and turns law enforcement into a tool for presidential interests. Congress never approved it, so this is just another example of Trump misusing his power. And let's not forget about bribery and corruption. That's another serious concern. Trump has been using his position to benefit his own businesses and reward his political allies. That's blatantly corrupt. And the Constitution is clear. Bribery is an impeachable offense. The framers explicitly included that for a reason. They understood the potential for presidents to exploit their power for personal gain. And that's exactly what Trump is doing. Finally, we have the issue of tyranny, which is a big deal. Congress is saying Trump is acting like a dictator. He's been ignoring courts and Congress, abusing his power, and even threatening people outright. Trying to rule by decree instead of law is a huge red flag. It's the very definition of tyranny, and it goes against our democratic principles. On top of all that, we have Al Green's articles from December, which zoom in on some of Trump's most extreme behavior. Can you believe he actually suggested that members of Congress should be executed for opposing him? He wasn't joking around either. He literally said they should be hung or killed. And Green is pointing out that this kind of talk is absolutely impeachable. So the situation really escalated when it comes to Trump and the move to hold him accountable. I mean, when a president starts making threats against legislators, that's pretty much a red flag for immediate removal. But it doesn't stop there. Trump has also been going after federal judges, targeting them on social media and trying to mess with their authority. That behavior, it's not just inappropriate. It's a classic case of obstruction of justice and witness tampering, definitely enough to consider impeachment. Then there's the matter of unauthorized military action. Trump has kicked off military operations, particularly against Venezuela, without getting congressional approval. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly. Congress is the one that declares war, not the president acting on his own. So that's another unconstitutional act that could lead to impeachment. Now, Al Green's articles claim Trump is acting like a tyrant. This is someone from Congress saying he might dissolve the republic if he's not stopped. That's heavy language signaling that our democracy is at risk and action is needed right away. Moving on to the vote that happened on December 11th, 2025, there were 140 members who voted to advance those articles. This is a critical step because those articles go to committee for hearings and debates and eventually to a full House vote. However, I should point out that 140 isn't a majority. To get something passed in the House, You need 218 votes. Still, that 140 is significant. It shows that support for impeachment is gaining ground. What's even more interesting is that this represents a 70% increase since June, which indicates that momentum is building. If this keeps up and more members jump on the bandwagon, hitting that 219 isn't out of the question. Analysts are saying this is a game changer because it's not just the usual progressives backing the articles. Even moderates and those from swing districts, people who might typically steer clear of taking a stand on impeachment, are voting yes. This suggests they either believe it's the right move or feel the political winds have shifted and their constituents want action against Trump. Either way, it's a significant development. Now, let's not forget the push for resignation, which is a whole different ballgame from impeachment. This is more about political pressure, with members of Congress calling for Trump to step down, labeling him as unfit and dangerous. They're making it clear that they think he needs to go. Congress can't actually force a president to step down. They can only ask and apply pressure. So far, over 120 members are on record urging Donald Trump to resign or be removed from office, which is a significant number. That's more than half of the Democratic caucus. And they're all saying it loud and clear. He's too dangerous and corrupt to stay in power. They believe it's time for him to go, whether he resigns on his own or they have to start impeachment proceedings or invoke the 25th Amendment. Now, the 25th Amendment allows the vice president and the cabinet to declare the president unable to perform his duties, allowing the vice president to step in as acting president. But the thing is, the vice president is loyal to Trump, so that's unlikely to happen. Realistically, we're left with either resignation or impeachment, and Trump has made it very clear he's not going to resign. He's in this fight for the long haul. So if Congress wants him out, they're going to have to go through the impeachment process, and that seems to be the direction things are headed. But here's the interesting part. The pressure isn't just coming from inside Congress. Outside, there's a lot going on, too. Groups like Free Speech for People, a nonprofit, have been fighting for Trump's impeachment since the very start of his second term. The Women's March is organizing significant protests, running petition drives, and creating ad campaigns under their Citizens Impeachment Initiative. They've even formed a coalition called the Removal Coalition with a straightforward goal: impeach, convict, and remove not just Trump, but also those who are complicit, like Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice. They're rallying people to take action. For instance, a recent Remove the Regime rally drew thousands of marchers to Washington, where they called for impeachment and delivered petitions, and they clearly aren't slowing down. Coming up, there's the Free America Walkout on January 20th, where folks across the country will leave work to head to their local congressional offices to demand impeachment. This kind of grassroots pressure really matters because members of Congress pay attention when their offices are swamped with constituents calling for action. They may not always do exactly what people want, but they have to notice, and as the pressure grows, more members will likely feel pushed to take action. So Trump has made it pretty clear that he believes losing the midterms would put him in hot water, saying, "If we lose the midterms, I'll be impeached." He's warning Republicans that they need to win, or else Democrats will definitely come after him with impeachment if they take the House. And let's face it, if Democrats flip the House in 2026, impeachment is not just a possibility, it's practically a guarantee. Speaker Mike Johnson is backing him up on this, telling conservatives they need to be concerned because if Democrats gain the majority, impeachment is on the table. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Johnson is using this whole impeachment threat to rally the Republican base. But for that strategy to work, Republicans need to be on the same page. They have to agree that impeachment isn't a route they want to take. However, we're already seeing some cracks in that unity. For instance, Republican Don Bacon has hinted that he might consider voting for impeachment if Trump steps over certain lines, which shows that the Republican consensus isn't as solid as Johnson believes. Looking at those 140 votes for impeachment shows some real momentum. It's shifting from an extreme viewpoint to something more mainstream. If Democrats do take the House, they'll have subpoena power and the ability to hold hearings and call witnesses, which means they'd start building a case that's hard to overlook. There's a chance that some Republicans might break ranks and consider voting for impeachment or even for a conviction in the Senate. Now, let's break this down practically, because impeachment is no walk in the park. It comes with a specific process and political calculations that we need to understand to see if Trump is really in danger. First off, impeachment starts in the House, where articles are introduced and sent to the Judiciary Committee. This committee then holds hearings, listens to testimony, reviews evidence, and ultimately votes. If they approve the articles, they move to the full House for a vote. If a majority, 218 members, back it, then the president gets impeached. But it's important to note that impeachment doesn't mean removal. It's akin to an indictment in a criminal court. It's just the House leveling charges of high crimes and misdemeanors against the president. The actual trial to determine if he gets removed takes place in the Senate. And right now, with only 140 members who have voted to move forward with articles, it's clear we're far from that 218 mark. So impeachment hasn't happened yet. But there are already 140 members in support, which is a solid group. If this momentum continues and more moderates jump on board, reaching that magic number of 218 becomes pretty doable, especially after the midterms. If the Democrats manage to grab more seats and grow their majority, they could really pull it off. Now, let's talk about what happens if the House actually goes through with impeachment. That would lead to a Senate trial where the House managers act as the prosecutors and present their case. The president's lawyers would defend him, senators would throw out questions, and then it all comes down to a vote. To actually convict someone, you'd need 2/3 of the Senate, which is 67 votes if all 100 senators are around. That's a pretty steep hill to climb. After the midterms, we might see the Democrats holding 50 or 51 seats, which means they would need 16 or 17 Republicans to cross the aisle. It's a tall order, but not out of reach. If the evidence is overwhelmingly strong and public pressure reaches a boiling point, there's a chance some Republicans might decide to break ranks. A few have already begun to entertain the idea. Then there's the political side of things that each member has to weigh. They really need to think about their re-election chances. Voting for impeachment could either be a smart move or a risky one. For those in solid blue districts, supporting impeachment is pretty much a safe bet since their constituents are all for it. But for those in swing districts, the waters get murky. They could alienate moderate voters or rally the Republican base against them. The interesting twist here is that as Trump's approval ratings dip and more people in his own base express dissatisfaction, those in swing districts might start to feel that sticking with Trump is the riskier choice. The fact that 140 members voted in favor of moving forward with articles, including some from competitive districts, hints that the political landscape might be changing. Lastly, even if impeachment doesn't lead to a conviction, it still has its significance. It puts everything on the record and makes sure there's a public trial. Senators will have to go on record with how they voted, and that can hurt Trump's political standing. It sends a clear message that a majority of the House believes he's unfit for office, reinforcing the narrative of him being corrupt and dangerous. Additionally, this whole process eases the way for any future prosecutions because impeachment hearings gather evidence, collect testimony under oath, and create an official record. Even if impeachment doesn't successfully remove Trump from office, it still has its uses, like helping in potential criminal trials later down the road. Then there's the whole demand for his resignation. Congress can't make Trump step down, but they sure can stir up pressure. They can publicly argue that he's unfit and that he's causing harm to the country.